traded some digestion for.
Yeah, there you go. Shabbat Shalom, everybody that's joining us online. And, of course, Shabbat Shalom, everybody's here. This week's Torah portion. Ekev. Now, some people will spell it a little bit differently. They might spell it like that, but which gives you the A, kind of Ekev. But it means the same thing. It's just phonetically transliterating it from the Hebrew. And what does it mean? Because. Okay, it means because, and what else does it mean? Anybody? There was actually in the King James Version, it says a particular word. In the New American Standard, it says, then it shall come about. It kind of uses a whole phrase instead of because. What was that? No, it's first word. It's the first word of the verse. When. So that's what King James says, when. There was another version. Where did I see that version? Anyway, all basically means the same thing. And so that's how it starts out. There is something going on, but it's also related to another word. Does anybody know what that other word is related to? Heel. It's not talking about what you say to your dog when you're walking your dog, okay? Has something else. So that is that. It is Deuteronomy 7. What verse does it start with? Verse 12 through Deuteronomy 11:25. Okay. All right. So let's open in prayer. Terry, would you like to pray?
Father, we come to you and we thank you for another day that you have given us to praise you and to love you and just say thank you. We thank you for all of these that have gathered and online both. We thank you for our loved ones. We ask that you cover all of us in your blood and protect us, Father. Bring us closer to you. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so in the Torah portion, one of the things that just to keep in mind about it is we're kind of repeating the entire Torah here in this one, or Deuteronomy, coming from the word deutero in the Greek, meaning the second reading of the Torah, the second Torah, but it is a recap of the thing. So how many of the things when you read through it sounded like we've read it before? Except there's a different emphasis. There's a separate emphasis on different things. And I think that emphasis on what Moses is bringing out is really significant. Because what does it seem to be what is one of the themes that we see throughout this Torah portion? Could it be related because of this word? Because if you do this, or because of this, then this is what will happen. So I think it relates to the word Shema, because you listen and you hear and you do and you obey, because you will see some rewards, because you do not do those things, you will have consequences for it. So we have this general theme that we can explore a little bit more. But talking about rewards, this is where this word is connected with, heel is connected to rewards. Now, there is also another verse that I thought was very significant in here. Let me find it. Yeah, Deuteronomy 11, verse 1. Deuteronomy 11, verse 1. Does someone have that? Want to read that real quick?
Therefore thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and keep his charge, and his statutes, and his judgments, and his commandments always.
Okay, so you shall therefore love. You shall love. Because if you love, then this is going to be the result of loving. It's like, oh, I love you, Father. What did you say to me? Because remember, one of the things about this word Torah that I think the translators in the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament deliberately translated as law. They deliberately made what was supposed to be Torah law. And why? Because what do we think of in our Greek mindsets? What do we think when we see law? Restrictions. What'd you say, William? I'm sorry. Obedience. And it's almost like suppression. Like, you better do this, or you better stay within the speed limit, or you better not run that red light, or, those different things. The law will get you. The blue and red lights. What if you ever been pulled over? What do you think? What goes through your mind when those red and blue lights are for your car?
What did I do wrong?
Yeah. What law did I violate? What excuse can I give? Will they listen to my excuse?
I always just say, again.
What?
When I get pulled over, I always just say,
Again. Okay, again. But when we look at that verse and we think about, you shall therefore love Yahweh your Elohim and always keep his charge. It's almost like the direct result of this love is we're going to do these things. But what is it that really, how do we really define that word? I know we've gone over this so many different times, but it so much relates to this. What does that mean? Instructions. So instructions, or could we also say his voice? His voice. Being a husband or being a wife and being a parent, what is it about our ears that we can pick up our child's voice or our spouse's voice out of a crowd? We can pick it out. We can hear it. Why? Why is it that we are able to tune into that?
Because we love them.
Because we love them.
Important.
They're important. It's that voice is familiar. And so when the voice of that word comes forth, it's like, what'd you say? What's going on? Is there trouble, or is it help, or is it something that I can do? Isn't that one of the responses that we have when we hear that voice? It's like, wait a minute, I heard something. Oh, everything's cool. And it's just a reassurance. So would you ever think about that in terms of when you shall therefore love the Lord your God and always shema his charge, his statutes, his ordinances and commandments. What did he say? Did I do something? Or is there a redirection in my path because that voice is telling us something? It's like, okay, you got my attention. The Shema. Yeah, Rick.
I want to play the devil's advocate because I'm so good at it. We say that we're supposed to follow his commandments and listen to his voice and everything. And he tells us that, for example, man laying with man is an abomination, not to do it.
Yeah.
And this stuff, and yet we turn it over in the New Testament and says, oh, you're supposed to love everyone. And then you sit there and say, well, you're supposed to tell that person, I love you, but I don't love what you're doing. And that seems very hypocritical. If you're going to tell them that what you're doing is an abomination to God, you should be telling them you're not in the circle and we're not going to have anything to do with you as long as you're doing something that is such in the face stuff to God. So how do you juggle those two? It's just very hypocritical to say, oh, I love you, but I don't like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're violating the Torah, you're violating the commandments. To me, it seems like it's back to the deal of, if you're going to be an abomination to God, I'm not going to love you.
Mm-hmm.
So
does it bring up a question that Yeshua brought up, which says, when he said that we should love our neighbor as ourselves?
well, how about bringing up the part where it says here, where it says these people are bad,
Mm-hmm.
do not let your son have anything to do with their daughters. And he told them not to even leave any of them alive.
Mm-hmm.
So which one of those commandments do you disobey and which one do you obey? If you obey the one where Jesus said that, then you end up with a world that now the gays and the LGBTQRXYZ community thinks they're in control. And if you say anything bad to them, then you're a hypocrite to your God. Whereas you're trying to tell them, no, you're the one that's not obeying the commandments. We should not be having anything to do with you if you're going to throw your lifestyle, the devil's lifestyle, in our God's face. We should not have anything to do with you on that.
Well, a lot of times, isn't it bait? Aren't they baiting us to say, "Oh, you're hypocritical," by saying, "Well, you're a Christian, so
You should allow this.
you should
love me and you should accept this."
Uh-huh.
And that's not the truth. I mean, the truth is, God said that it's an abomination to him. If it's an abomination to him yesterday, and it's an abomination to him today, why will it not be an abomination to him tomorrow?
I think
He never changes.
isn't it a good thing that we don't sit in the position of God? Because
Yeah, but look what we've done to our world by allowing it. By turning the other cheek and allowing that, now our world is neck deep in
the corruption of it all.
crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just neck deep in satanic deal.
Well, that's the key. This is not our world.
Well, yeah, Michael.
Until that time comes, we still have to live here in this world.
Come out of the world.
So
Jesus says,
we can't isolate
if you
ourselves.
see somebody sinning, stay away from them, don't hang out with them.
Yeah.
So
New covenant is going
I guess
on.
the way you're supposed to love those people, but not be around them.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, we certainly don't endorse their lifestyle. And on the other side of it, let's look at it in this sense,
By keeping silent, we're allowing them to grow and to grow and to grow and to grow.
right? That's a good point. And one of the things that I think what we're looking at in our culture is believers in this, in the United States, and you can say the Western world.
Even Israel is a good example.
Is because-
in Jerusalem.
Yeah, it is. And that's the departure from the Torah, and that's that's a definition of wickedness. The definition of evil, definition of wickedness is the departure from the Torah. And so therefore, that's why I said, even last week, I said this: the people that are living in the land of Israel today are set up after 70 years plus, because it's been about 75 years now, a little bit, maybe more. It's 2017, 2018. Whatever the math is on that, 74, 75 years. They are, Michael could help me out. Since So 1948 till now, how many years is that? 75 years? Okay, 75 years. And we've seen this progression going down the path where Israel sits today. Do the people in the land of Israel, because it's the land, will the land vomit them out? The people that are living there now, will the land vomit them out? I'm just saying, it doesn't matter, bloodline or whatever, because of the degradation and the departure from Torah in the land today, will those people survive in the land? That's why when the word tells us that Jerusalem will come under attack, and Yeshua said, don't even go down. If you're on your rooftop, don't even go back into the house. Leave. Don't get your coat. If you're in the field, don't go back to the city. Why? He says, run, get out of there. Because when you see these things happening, get out of there. So why? Because the land will either vomit them out or they will die in the land, just like the Nephilim did, just like the inhabitants of the land at the time that Israel crossed the Jordan. They would be destroyed. And so that's why we see that in the book of Revelation. We see a people departing the land, and we see people dying in the land. And because God will not allow that to happen in the land. So our warning signal is, look, dude, first off, when it comes to conversations like that, when I come across different people like that, it's not my place to say anything unless it's brought up and put into context, because it could lead to a lot of different stuff that I don't have time for at the time. But because it has to deal with what is the proper word for that time when we are in front or engaged with a person in that type of lifestyle. So there's always the appropriate time to bring it up. Otherwise, I don't want to end up being like, what is it, that Baptist church up there in Kansas, that's Westboro Baptist Church, that has the tendency to protest anything and everything that's not according to their church doctrine, and they look like fools, and they look like they're evil and harsh people.
Protesting against the stuff in the Torah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, right.
It's like, wait, you're protesting against the following orders.
Yeah. So
Be really careful.
So there's a lot of different elements, and that's why we have to have the Torah to walk us through. We can walk through with a very judgmental heart and say, you're living a wrong lifestyle, but I'm going to tell you this. Someone could point out to, a dozen other things in my own lifestyle that I'm dealing with, that I'm walking through and being such. So it's like, logging. Yeah. So I have to be really careful that it is, am I pointing people to the living word, that which is going to bring forth life, that which is going to restore at a certain point in time. In fact, we had one young lady that came to our congregation for a while. She was one involved in witchcraft and in homosexuality. And what did we do? We loved her, and we spoke, and we kept preaching the truth. We just spoke the truth in love. And we didn't have to address lifestyle or religion with her. She came to her senses, said, both are wrong. Eventually what happened is she had these two ideas in her mind, and she had to resolve one or the other. She chose to go back to her lifestyle because try to mix that community and saying, well, God is love, and he's full of mercy. So I can live in the community and still hold on to this lifestyle, which, whether one is having, let's put it in these terms. So hopefully, if there's any kids that are listening, I don't mean to, I'm just going to say the truth. If one has sex outside of marriage, or sex as a single person, whether it is same sex or opposite sex, anything outside the bond of a marriage between husband and wife is wrong. But I'll tell you this, from the pulpits today, because they don't teach this truth and point people back to Torah, to Shema, to hear and to do and obey, and to say this is how we love God, then, and therefore we need to make sure our relationships are good and they're right and they're righteous and they're pure, then churches are full of couples that are living together outside of the bond of marriage, and they think it's okay because they haven't been instructed. They haven't been instructed. They haven't had that bolt of lightning. Honestly, they haven't had the revelation of that lifestyle because the revelation isn't being taught from the instructions. They're coming. Andy.
Did you hear about that church that had that LGBTQ pastor? It was some Baptist church. And he came down, he preached about the differences, the discrepancies and the inaccuracies within the Bible and how the Bible was incorrect in a lot of things. And he just went on and on. And everybody left the church, and then the church got struck by lightning and burned to the ground.
Was that the one that was up there in Massachusetts?
Yeah, I think so. It was just like a month ago or so.
Yeah.
And the lightning came on a clear day.
Yeah, and it was a historic building.
There shouldn't have been a thunderstorm. There was no other lightning. It was like,
Yeah.
You want to make the Father mad, you're going to have to pay the price when you do that.
Yeah, it burnt the.
Don't forget he's on that white hot throne, man.
Well, it burnt the building to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
All the way down. But let's talk about this because that really brings us to another part of this Torah portion. And we were talking about, maybe we can hit some more things about the reward. Let's hit that in rewards, and we're going to talk a little bit more about we'll talk the issue about judgment, but the mercy of God even in the midst of judgment. So the heel, what does this tell us? Because it's a derivative of Ekev is a derivative. It's related to somebody's name. Whose name is it? Yeah. So let me just put it up here. Yaakov. I'm going to spell it like that. Yaakov. Because here, Akov is the same root as Ekev, and that's where how Jacob was called the one who grabs the heel. That's how he got his name, and it's been used against Jacob, right? It's been used. His name has been used almost as a derogatory name, and yet he's called the father of our faith, and yet the rabbis and Christian teachers and all sorts of stuff, say he's a supplanter, but it's not about supplanting. It's about protecting what? He was protecting his head. Rosh. He was protecting his head. So this connection of heel to the head is really important. I think it's really significant. Why? Because
he's the one that ends up protecting the word.
He's the one. He was the one. Excellent point. He protected and watched over the word because he was a man of the tents.
Then there was seed as well. There was a good seed and a bad seed.
Uh-huh.
And that bad seed planted probably by across the time to change the course.
Yeah. And exactly, because what would have happened if Esau kept his position? What would have happened? Because would that not have been the satanic plan, is to destroy the entire house of Israel? Yeah. Well, Jacob had a name change. And what was his name? Israel. And in Israel, there's a little bit of a letter game that's going on here. You have the Rosh, the Sheen, and another letter. I think you have the Resh and the Sheen, which out of it you get the same connected letters of in the word Rosh. And this is an ayin. So I gotta go back and double check that. What is that? Rosh. Oh yeah, it is an ayin. Okay, this is an ayin. So you have a resh, ayin, sheen. In Israel, in the name Israel, you have the resh, the ayin, and the sheen. Do you see how that? I put it on the board so you could actually see it in Hebrew, but I'm not going to do it. But you can see it in the English letters. That the resh, the ayin, and the sheen, or the sheen, the resh, and the ayin. So we have this illusion of a connection of who Jacob is, and Jacob is called father of our faith. Abraham's the father of our faith, Isaac and Jacob. We have all those. So there's a connection that he was first called the heel, the hand, the yod, the hand, heel. The hand is grabbing the heel. They called him the supplanter, they on a derogative sense, but in reality, he's protecting the Rosh, or the head, and in his new name, you can find Rosh, the head. Rosh means the head. It also speaks of the leader, or you can also say it in this way, like the headwaters of a river or of a stream. It's where the purest water comes from. So if you think about this guy who makes this journey, where they did, probably Esau used his name against it. How many times in elementary school and junior high that kids make fun of their other kids' names, right? Especially if it's a unique name, it's a different name. Not anymore.
Yeah, because they're all unique.
They're all unique and they're all weird and they have no meaning. That's a whole nother. You could preach that. Names that have no meaning. Do you want that this is the generation where they feel meaningless? Romangelo. Yeah. Yeah. So Israel, he also becomes the head, but the heels. If we're thinking about this, think about this. On the heels of the Messiah comes our rewards. On the heels, because generally it's like, what is the heels? It's the last thing that leaves the ground as you're taking your next step forward. And when you think about the head and the Messiah who is coming.
No, that's backwards.
Huh?
When you're taking the step, you go heel, toe.
Well, unless you're a model, and you're a model, you go toe heel. Okay, never mind. All right. So, but think about the heel is what's following behind you, and so on the heels is a great reward. And what? So in the Hebraic mindset, one of the things we have to consider is they don't talk about the rewards in this life. We get this Deuteronomy 28. What's Deuteronomy 28 all about? So the blessings and the curses. What's on our heels? What's on the heels of Messiah? In other words, what is on this path that's on the heels of Messiah? On his return comes two things. Consequences, the curses or the blessings or the curses. So when we go back to this mindset of the Hebraic mindset, we have they typically think of, and they're taught, and this is what the rabbis teach, don't think about the rewards that you get in this lifetime in following the Torah. Think about the rewards in the life to come. Think about the word, and you think about what's happened to Yehuda throughout the generations, and we see great persecution and all that sort of thing. And so what is one of those things that the rabbis have taught their people through the centuries was to say, I know it's tough right now, but think about your rewards in the life to come. Live for the life to come, because it's going to be a greater reward. Because ultimately, what is it about? It's about the inheritance of the land. A land full of milk and honey. That's a whole nother thing we could probably talk on. So on the
And that's what
heels.
they teach you when you're like in track. You go for that gold ring.
Yeah,
You go for that prize.
you go for the prize. So what is the prize? Are we like, if I live this way now and I'm able to follow these things, well, next year it'll be better. I mean, what do we talk about? What is the Hebraic mindset when it comes to Yom Kippur? What is the day of Yom Kippur all about?
The Day of Atonement,
The-
the Day of Covering.
Okay, and what is the practice? Fasting and humbling ourselves, because what the Jews will say is that's the last final day to clean the slate so that we can have favor the rest of the year for the next year. Well, that's pretty short-sighted, isn't it? Because there's like, oh, I know I did this. I had these intentional and unintentional sins. Let's clean the slate. We're going to find mercy. We beat our chests. We do all that sort of thing. What? Why? Because we want to make sure, we're good to go for the next year. But this is something that we want to make sure that we are following the pure headwaters, the stream that comes down from the mountain, so that we can have those fresh, clean waters every day. Because the further you get downstream, what does that water look like? Yeah. Do you ever look? What's that? What's the river called that runs through New York City? The Hudson River. Hudson River.
Hudson.
Nasty water. What about the Mississippi?
Not gonna work.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming. You think about all that chemical spill that took place up there in Ohio. Where do you think all those chemicals are now?
Downstream.
Down the Tennessee and down into the Tennessee Valley.
Yeah,
Red,
just all the way out to the Gulf of Mexico. And then we go to the beach, right? Yeah, okay.
But the Jordan is nasty too.
But when you go to the headwaters of the Jordan, it's
Not the headwaters.
pure and it's clean, and you can see through it. It's not until it gets further downstream, but they still, but they don't pollute the Jordan like they do, like we do in our own rivers in this country, or many rivers of the country. All right, so
When I was a kid, I remember up in Illinois and everything, the rivers caught on fire. They caught on fire, and the river was burning.
wow, that's pretty bad.
That's scary
Yeah.
because you're supposed to drink water.
Yeah. So, well, of course, the World Economic Forum has told us that, you know what, you're going to eat bugs and you're going to love it, and you'll not own anything and you're going to love it. And by the way, we're going to recycle all the water that we have, and you're going to drink sewer water and you're going to love it.
They can have mine.
I want to tell you something though. I was on a bus ride when I was a kid in London, and we were traveling from Heathrow. Can't remember if I think we were going into the city or we were going to Gatwick Airport, which is another international airport, but we had to transfer between the two airports. And the bus driver was kind of giving some points of facts about London. And they said, yeah, when that water comes out of your tap, it's been recycled 7 times.
Ew.
You think, oh, recycled water. Well, so when Charles Schwab, or whatever his name is, when he came back and he said, you're going to drink sewer water, recycled water, they've been doing it for years in many of these cities in Europe. And why? Because there's just not enough water supply. So you think about the Thames River. So it's spelled Thames, but it says it's the Thames. It's the Thames. Can you imagine what that water's like?
Disgusting.
Really disgusting. Okay, so all right, then we digress, but we're going to get back on track.
Well, later they used to dump bodies in there and float out to the sea. People would complain, somebody buried, they just dump them in there and they float out to the sea.
So this whole idea of judgment. So let's go over here to. There was another verse that I was looking for. Before we go to that one, go over to Psalm 19 with me. Follow along with me begin with verse 1. Follow along with me and think about the words, the inspiration that's been given into this. And then we're going to go to, where did I see that other verse? Over in Proverbs. We'll have to go to Proverbs next. But Psalm 19, verse 1. The heavens are telling of the glory of Yah, and their expanse is declaring the work of his hands day to day. In fact, Gary's here with us today, and Gary's brought out the how different stars of heaven have names, and those names declare the Besorah, the good news. And it tells us, it really tells us the past and our present and our future. It's all in the heavens. And so when you start going through those names, and then you're able to translate those names, you can see this amazing message written in the heavens. The heavens are telling of the glory of Yah, and their expanse is declaring the work of his hands. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their utterances to the end of the world. In them he has placed a tent for the sun. Okay, do you see all the idioms that are placed in that verse? What's it talk about? It says their utterances to the end of the world, their utterances. We were talking about the voice. And then it says in them he has placed a tent for the sun. So when you think about a tent, what do you think of? You think of a Sukkot and Yaakov, who is a man of the tents. So what is it telling us? That's where our learning, we're going to find our instructions, even embedded within the heavens. And it goes on, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chambers. It rejoices as a strong man to run his course. Its rising is from one end of the heavens, and its circuit to the other end of them, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. All right? Is that not the picture of Yeshua? And then going on, and then it says this, all right, verse 7. I dislike what the translators say because they put law in there, and I'd rather use, which is really the word Torah. So the Torah of Yahweh is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of Yahweh are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Yahweh is clean, enduring forever. The judgments or the mishpat of Yahweh are true, They are righteous altogether. They are more desirable than gold, yes, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey, and the drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them thy servant is warned. In keeping them, there is great reward. Here's that reward thing. In keeping them, there's great reward. What is on the heels of the Messiah? Because he's coming. What do we see up there in verses talking about the Messiah? The bridegroom is coming, and on his heels, that word, in keeping them, there is great reward. That word, reward, is Ekev. Ekev. Who can discern his errors? Acquit me of hidden faults. Also, keep back thy servant from presumptuous sins. Let them not rule over me. Then I shall be blameless, and I shall be acquitted of great transgressions. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. By the way, there's one of those things that Yeshua is Yahweh, by the way. It says that, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. Who is our redeemer? Yeshua. He is Yahweh. He is our rock. How many times do we say that in the New Testament? How many times do New Testament believers say that Yeshua is their rock and redeemer? And here it says, oh Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. Can you not just draw the parallels to that and say Yeshua is Yahweh? I don't know. Okay, that's the digression. But anyway, so there is a connection, and it really takes us to the connection of where I think we mentioned it last week. We probably mentioned it many times, but let's go over to the book of Yaakov. James. Because why did they call Yaakov, the letter from Yaakov to the assemblies? Why did they call it James in the English? It's because it's not a direct translation. Yaakov is not a direct, James is not a direct translation from Yaakov. It's just not. Okay, book of James, Hebrew, James. Chapter 1, verse 25, but one who looks intently at the perfect Torah, the Torah of liberty, and abides by it, not having become a forgetful hearer, but an effectual doer. In other words, one who, not a forgetful hearer, but an effectual one who shamas. This man shall be blessed in what he does. There's that reward, the reward for following his commandments. If anyone thinks of himself to be religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this man's religion is worthless. This is pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father, to visit the orphans, the widows, and the distressed, and to keep one's self unstained by the world. How about and then hold that thought one moment. Verse 12, so speak. This is chapter 2, verse 12. So speak and so act. So speak and so act as those who are to be judged by the Torah of bondage?
Freedom.
No, the Torah of liberty. So isn't it really important? The instructions that bring freedom, that bring life, are not a burdensome thing. I mean, I say that. So maybe somebody that's coming around on the archives and they're listening to this and they're trying to get their feet grounded in maybe the Hebraic roots of our faith to help change that mindset, to remember that it is not burdensome. It is the law of freedom. It is the law of liberty. It is the Torah, is the instructions of liberty. Going on, it says, for judgment will be merciless to one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. That's why, you know what? it's very, very important, kind of going back to what Rick was saying earlier, as much as I dislike one who has a particular life, I dislike their lifestyle. It's so much better to show mercy. It's not to remain silent, because I think we should always speak the truth in love. But it also means, and I remember, specifically, like in Jonathan's case, those people, those prosecutors, all of them, they could have shown mercy, but because they're so quick, those detectives, those people that are involved, because they're so quick to make a judgment so that there be condemnation. And that condemnation wasn't just simply because of a plea deal. That condemnation was what actually did a lot more, because when they posted it on Facebook, do you know those ugly comments that people posted? Oh my goodness. Evil comments. But what's going to happen to those people that show no mercy? Yeah, William.
Typically the lens they look through is warped because they're so focused on the underbelly of society that they become just as bad because of who they surround themselves with.
Yeah.
And that oftentimes leads to, them running around killing people and covering up.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, who goes and looks at the what do you call it, the mug shots? Who goes there? Who goes to look at the mug shots of those people that have been in?
Usually it's somebody looking to see if somebody they know is there.
I mean, it's. I was like, I don't care, because
I've gone in and looked for Shea Park because he's in and out.
yeah, well, that's
I found
there's a
out.
reason to go there, but otherwise, who goes and browses the Facebook page of Randall County? Who just does that? I don't understand that.
It's not a serious word like that.
And now, James goes on and he says some things that are very, very interesting that I think really relates to this. Let me see here. In verse 22 of James 2, you see that it just reads this way. You see that faith was working with his works, talking about Abraham, and as a result of the works, faith was perfected. Now, I have to say it in this sense. Now, we use that word faith, but when you take that word faith and you take it back to the Hebrew, does anybody know what that word is in the Hebrew? Emunah.
Spell it, please.
Emunah. Yep, that's it. Emunah is, it's translated as faith, but it's actually faithfulness and loyalty. So you see that faithfulness and loyalty was working with Abraham's works, and as a result of faithfulness and as a result of the works, faithfulness and loyalty was perfected. So, what is the definition, Hebraically thinking, works? What are works? Because
Following the commandments.
following the commandments. The very thing where this whole Torah portion is about is Shemaim, is the keeping, the doing of his word, because it's the expression of our love. And so therefore, if we really want our love with him perfected, how is it perfected? Is it by faith or is it by faithfulness?
It's both.
Because faith is a Greek term we talked about last week, mental agreement to, a mental assent to. I agree with that. But faithfulness and loyalty is saying, this is my king. I'm going to follow under his edicts. I'm not going to follow my own edicts, because therefore, if I follow my own edicts, I've made myself an idol. I pick and choose, I've made myself an idol. If I can have a Torah that says I'm going to follow these commandments, but this one I'm going to leave out. And that's not just, and I'm not just talking about the 10 commandments. I'm talking about, if you look at the 633 or whatever they are, 613. I mean, so, I mean, we pick and choose then, and I understand some are for men and some for women. Don't go there. Just saying, you know, every single one that I can follow, I'm going to follow, because as I do this, I'm becoming mature. Mature, it goes back to this word rosh, because in Jacob's life, at the very beginning, we do see immaturity in Jacob's life. And so the teachers, the rabbis, the commentators, they degrade his name, but we see maturity through his life, just like in Joseph. Joseph was just like his daddy. But we see at the end of Joseph's life, great maturity. And what did he do? He led his brothers and his father to life. So the rewards that follows that leadership brings life. Kind of a theme that seems to be going on here. And where was it in Romans? Paul talks about it, and I don't know if I can find it. I do want to mention this real quick. Let's stay in James and we'll talk about Romans. What Paul said. In verse 26, chapter 2, verse 26 in James, Yaakov, for just as the body without the spirit is dead, so also faithfulness, loyalty without works is dead. How can we show our faithfulness without following Torah, following the instructions? You can't. It's two different things. It's like either we are in alignment and we follow in his footsteps, in the footsteps of Yeshua, the footsteps of Moses, so to speak, or we don't, and therefore we don't show. How about this? But going on in chapter 3 of James, verse 2, for we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man. So in other words, here's that voice and what he says. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man. What is that word perfect? Mature man. Yeah, he is tamim.
What was that verse again?
James 3, verse 2. He is a mature man, able to bridle the whole body as well. So think about this, of the last different things, when we think about the voice of the Spirit that speaks through here. If you want to know how much the Spirit of God is in you, what is this doing? Because if this is mature, it doesn't engage. So what was that? It stays, just keep it shut. Right? If it's because this thing can engage us and really reveal an immature heart. So whether it's gossip, whether it's backstabbing, whether it's passing judgment, whether it's not showing love, not showing mercy. And so, I keep thinking about what you said, Rick, earlier. And love is expressed in a lot of different ways. But sometimes telling somebody what they don't want to hear is the highest expression of love.
In that he says to love your neighbor as yourself and everything. Is the identifier there neighbor? Does that insinuate your neighbor who is a follower of the Torah? Or does it insinuate some stranger who worships Baal and does everything satanic?
Okay, it's a really good question, because isn't that the same question that the religious leader of Yeshua's day asked Yeshua? Who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? How do we define the neighbor? And we really have to discern who our neighbor is.
Yep.
And
Set yourself apart.
I think the Torah.
Followers of the Torah.
You want followers of the
Somebody
Torah.
who is doing everything they can to spit in the face of my king. I think that I need to come out against them.
Yeah, because you know, and there's so many different parts. There are those that keep that entire lifestyle quiet, and then there's those that totally throw it in your face with like these parades and stuff that they've been having, and
bring it into school, whether if we're trying to bring our children and our grandchildren up in the ways of the Lord,
Mhm.
and they're throwing it in their face and trying to, no, you need to follow me. Follow what my king,
Mhm.
Satan, says.
and you know, honestly, that's a really good point that we really need to look at, because I'm not necessarily pointing out any person, but I am seeing the result of them trying to force these books into our school libraries and our city libraries and this type of thing. And then we should let our voices be heard. And guess what? I mean, this is where our culture is today. And this is why there's another reason for great judgment that's going to come upon it, is that in the state of Texas, do you realize that they tried to take it to the courts about these books that are being presented to our children that are so explicit? We wouldn't want to look at it. Adults don't want to look at it. We'd rather have them completely removed. And the courts are saying, no, that's censorship. That's blocking free speech. You can't do that. And you think, well, that's not right. And
If they
so-
censor the Bible out, they should censor that
That's what I
crap.
was gonna say.
they, okay, but on the other side, so what have they had to do? Now they're having to go through the legislature in order to put the content of that book. And I'm going to tell you this is what the legal minds have said regarding, because of the relationship to the First Amendment. And the First Amendment says that you cannot censor. What the courts have decided is they can't censor speech, and art is an expression, and so therefore it cannot be censored. So those are the court rulings handed down by the Supreme Court. So now what they're having to do is legislate to say, then these books, because they're of the explicit nature in it, should not be available to children in the classrooms, in the school libraries, or in the city libraries, and that they should be restricted, put an age restriction on it, like they put restrictions on music and movies and other types of media that's out there, in order just so that they're out of the reach of our children. Now, from us, we still think that's not enough.
Right.
And we're not saying this is
Still
book
smart.
burning or anything like that. But the problem is that we have lived in a culture that was not engaged when it was just a little spark. And because that little spark is now this blazing forest fire, they're trying to take a water hose to put out the forest fire. And that's the problem where our culture is. And that's why then we get back to this Torah portion when we get in this issue of judgment. But why mercy, there's mercy for God's people, but ultimately, just like in Sodom and Gomorrah, the time will come that will come upon the land. And it's any land and every land that has chosen not to, chose not to follow. And the result is including the land, the people in the land of Israel today. And of all different things, if they should be the ones teaching the world, if you want to put it in the context of that the word will go forth out of Jerusalem, and that the role and responsibility of Israel is to teach the rest of the world. But the lifestyles that have been allowed in Israel is what's the louder voice.
Our parents and grandparents were wise enough to say, no, if you don't bring playboys and hustlers into our children's libraries. But yet we're turning around now and saying, oh, something worse than that, we can allow that because it's free speech.
Mm-hmm.
You know what our parents did do though, is they let them take prayers. Our parents stood back and not even,
They did.
and our parents didn't fight about it.
1963.
Yep, they let it go through, so our parents were not
Mhm.
without fault.
Yeah.
Because, I think that was the beginning personally.
Yeah. There was, I would agree that there was a big,
And now.
they hit the slope. They hit that slippery slope.
Put these things in there, but they want to allow a Bible. They want to allow a Bible to be at school. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can't take a Bible to school.
Kids can't take them to their classrooms.
Well, I think kids can take their Bible, but they certainly won't have any reading of it. There's explicit material in the Bible. But they'll put these other horrible books into the libraries.
Yeah, because they had them in one.
I'm not saying the Bible's horrible. They'll as opposed
One of
to,
my kids-
because in the issues that there is explicit things within the Bible itself, it is to teach the lesson of to go back and return to following the word.
Kind of a balance too. It's more good than it is bad, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not nearly as explicit as what they've got.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. Paul says in Romans chapter 7, verse 12, so then the Torah is holy and the commandment is holy and righteous and good. It's often forgotten now, but so think about this. I'm just going to throw it out there. I know we've already talked about this in a prior Torah portion. When Moses came down from the mountain holding the two tablets that had the 10 utterances on them. Remember, it's utterances, 10 words, but literally the 10 utterances of Yah engraved by the finger of God on those tablets. I want you to think about this and draw these parallels. So think about those tablets. What did he do with those tablets?
What did he need to do?
What did Moses do with those tablets?
He broke the first one.
He saw the golden calf and he threw them down and he broke them, symbolizing the breaking of this covenant that they had with God. But think about this. When the religious leaders of Yeshua's day brought the woman caught in adultery to him, where was that?
Where?
Was it just on the street? Some court in the street in Jerusalem?
Outside the court of the temple, wasn't it?
Was it? It was on the temple grounds.
Here's my question.
Okay.
The man who is caught in the act of doing that, he's also supposed to have the same judgment as the woman. So where is he?
Well, that's yeah.
One of the reasons they wouldn't
I-
go ahead and do
That's a good point, but I don't want to go that direction. I want to go the other direction. It says that they had picked up stones. What stones on the temple grounds did they pick up?
Pieces of the temple
the first altar.
that had broken.
So anything that was on the temple grounds was considered what? Holy. So if those stones were part of the original of the altar that Solomon had built, or actually not necessarily Solomon, but it went back to the first temple, and those stones that were not taken away by the Babylonians, there's just the rubble that was there. Those stones remained there. Why? Because those stones are considered to be holy.
That's why they couldn't throw them down in Kidron Valley there, because they didn't know how to get rid of them.
And so those are the stones that were picked up to stone, ready to stone this woman. Now, Moses and the tablets that he broke, what happened to those sapphire stones?
They're in the ark.
Ooh.
I'm willing to bet they're in the ark.
Were they just left on the ground? Or were they gathered and put together in a special place, which I would agree with Tammy, those are the commandments that were placed in the ark. The tablets that Moses carved out went back up to the mountains and put the utterances back on, that those are the ones that were set beside the ark that we see later on in Deuteronomy it's talked about. So think about that. I wonder when the ark comes out and the top of that ark is removed, will it all be put back together again?
Yeah.
Because why? Because the word's living. It's living. And where did they come from? You think about we talked about the heavens is a sapphire. They looked up, it was the footstool of Yah was like sapphire. It's it's pavement. The pavement of heaven is sapphire, carved from his own pavement. It would be holy. It would be completely set apart for him. And so you're not going to trash the rocks.
Come on.
If you think about this, what rocks will cry out?
Steps foot from the mount when he comes back. The people's ears will be open. They will hear the grass praising him. They will hear the trees praising him. But most of all, they will hear the rocks crying out who he is.
So could it be that which is coming out, the voice that comes out of the Ark of the Covenant, so to speak? Even the rocks will cry out.
Right.
If we don't praise him, if we don't worship him.
Something's going to be praising him.
I don't know, just something to chew on just a little bit. Okay. All right, so let's talk about something else because it's in this week's Torah portion. Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 9. Let's read chapter 9, verse, let's see. Okay, let's go to verse 8. Someone read verse 8.
Even in Horeb you made Yah wroth, so that Yah was enraged with you to destroy you.
Keep going.
When I went up into the mountains to receive the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant which Yah made with you, then I stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. I did not eat bread, nor did I drink water.
Amazing. Miracle. Okay, keep going.
Then Yah gave me the 2 tablets of stone written with the finger of Elohim, and on them were all the words which Yah had spoken to you on the mountain from the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly.
We need to stop. Come here. All 3 of you, come here. Okay. I want you to come over here.
Yeah.
I want you to read Amariah's shirt.
I've got a secret. I'm going to be a big sister. Oh. Oh. Look at that.
Wow.
Well, there you go.
That's exciting.
Everybody got to hear that word.
Exciting. Way to go, Gillian.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to this. We're in verse 10. Let's start over on that verse.
Yeah, we're at 9.
Yeah, 9, 10.
That's exciting.
Keep reading, Jackie.
9, I forgot where we're
Verse
at.
10.
10. Okay. Then Yah gave me the 2 tablets of stone written with the finger of Elohim, and on them were the words, all the words which Yah had spoken to you on the mountain from the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. And it came to be at the end of the 40 days and 40 nights that Yah gave me the 2 tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant. Then Yah said to me, arise, go down quickly from here, for your people can be brought out of
Mishpatim,
Mishpatim.
Egypt.
I always say the last of it wrong. Have acted corruptly. They have quickly turned aside from the way which I commanded them, and they have made themselves a molded image. And y'all spoke to me saying, I have seen this people, and look, they are stiff-necked people. Woo, yeah, come on, that's what you call this crowd that's trying to bring their, okay, leave me alone so that I destroy them and blot out of their names from under the heavens and make of you a nation stronger and greater than they did. So I turned and came down from the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my 2 hands. And I looked and saw that you had sinned against Yah, your Elohim, and had made for yourselves a molded calf. You had quickly turned aside from that which Yah had commanded you. And I took the 2 tablets and threw them out of my 2 hands and broke them before your eyes. And I fell down before Yah as at the first, 40 days and 40 nights. I did not eat bread and I did not drink water because of all your sins which you committed in doing evil in the eyes of Yah to provoke him.
80 days of fasting
Good.
and of food and water. Amazing. Okay.
And Yah, wait a minute, we're again. Okay. For I was afraid of the displeasure and rage with which Yah was wroth with you to destroy you. But Yah listened to me that time once more. And Yah was
Okay.
enraged.
Whoa. Okay. Stop right there.
Yes.
I was afraid of the anger and hot displeasure which Yahweh was wrathful against you in order to destroy you, but Yahweh listened to me that time also. What does your version say there in verse 19?
Was wroth with you to destroy you, but Yah listened to me. Okay, I was
No,
enraged.
say that again. But y'all listen to me. What's it say?
But y'all listened to me that time once more.
Oh,
You got one more chance.
Oh.
Yeah.
that y'all listen. Oh, once more.
Uh-huh.
Is that an allusion to the wrath that is to come? Yeah, I believe
I
it
would
is.
say-
You know, we talk about the double dibs, but this is one of those things that it's speaking that he once more speaks that his wrath came once, it comes again.
Yeah.
All right.
Year.
Okay, so there's a nice little nugget buried there. Okay, go ahead in verse 20.
And Yah was very enraged with Aaron to destroy him. So I prayed for Aaron at that time also. And I took your sin, the calf which you had made, and burned it with fire, and crushed it, and ground it in very small, until it was as fine as dust. And I threw its dust into the stream that came down from the mountain.
Oh, okay, all right, stop right there. Okay, all right. Where do we know about a stream coming down from the mountain?
Throne room. There's a stream under the throne.
Ezekiel talks about the river that comes from the
Yes,
throne.
Yes. The river, yes.
Moses said a stream came down from the mountain. Now, we know that there was a stream that came out of the rock. But at this point in time, had he already... Yeah, I guess he did. He had already spoken to the rock. Okay, so he'd already spoken to the rock at this point in time. This stream that comes down out of the mountains, specifically saying in this chapter, he's talking about where is Yah?
He's on the mountain.
He's on the mountain. And what is his presence like? In verse 10, it says, which Yahweh had spoken with you at the mountain from the midst of the fire on the day of the assembly.
That's what I was going to say. Fire.
Okay. And so it's describing fire. Now, what is it? That's really interesting that Moses did, and he told the people to drink.
he ground up the gold from the golden calf and he put it into the river coming down from the mountain.
Go Terry.
Gold powder.
Colorado gold.
I don't know if I spelled that
Slab of
right.
silver.
You did.
Colloidal gold. Colloidal gold. Okay, everybody knows what colloidal silver is, right?
Yeah.
So colloidal silver is silver that's taken down to these fine, super fine powder to nano size,
Yes.
Dust.
It works.
right? And what's it do for you?
It did for me anyway.
It's an antibiotic, and it has a bunch of other properties to it, but it's known for its antibiotic properties. That's why in the medieval times, royalty had a silver spoon. We get that phrase, born with a silver spoon in their mouths. Okay, what is it about? Why did they have silver as opposed to the common people that might have had just wood or tin or something like that? And well, they could afford it, but the properties of silver is antibacterial.
And that's why they
And they had better health than the common people. But if we look at colloidal gold is anti-radiation properties. What was that fire on a mountain that had no wood on it? What is it about the properties of the presence of God that is so powerful that you can't come near unless you're properly prepared? So if they had been standing in the presence of God and they're like, whoa, this is too much, could they have been feeling the very effect of the radiation of God on their bodies that they weren't prepared for? That even they were supposed to be dressed in white. In other words, in linen, because linen protects you from radiation. Could it have been that their linen wasn't ready and properly prepared? Could it be that because they didn't, maybe, I don't know, something about the radiation, they had to back off. The presence of God, they had to back off. And in the midst of the presence of God, and here comes Moses, who's been up there radiating the presence of God. And in physical sense, radiation of God is on Moses, that his presence would kill them from radiation. Radiation treatment does what to the body?
It's supposed to kill things.
It burns the cells.
Yeah.
Burns it up.
But colloidal gold is a protection of radiation. If one of the common things that they use now, if you have radiation poisoning, is they give you colloidal gold. It protects you from the cancer effects of radiation. Colloidal gold. So these people, he told, so this, in this act of mercy, in the act of mercy is he said, drink this water now and you'll be protected. You know, we've talked about this. I'm just going to throw this out there. We've talked about that when they drank the bitter waters, if they had committed adultery, the woman had committed adultery, what's it say that happens to her?
Her belly would swell.
And her thighs would rot. And so if everybody drank it, there was protection. It makes me wonder that the rebellious people maybe didn't drink that water, and they were in great agony and great pain. Just a thought. I know it goes against this other teaching, which is a pretty cool teaching about, you know, how it identifies the woman that had committed adultery. But on the other side, what if they chose not to? It was 3,000 of them identified. They were the effects of the radiation had already caused them to double over in pain. You know, what are the symptoms of radiation poisoning?
You get sores.
You can get a lot of
Sores and
hair
just
falls out.
and sickness and inside vomiting and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, they didn't drink it, identified. And as an act of mercy, the Levites went and killed them to put them out of their misery. I don't know, just a thought. But isn't it interesting how mercy and judgment can act together? But on the other side, we see the mercy of God poured out in colloidal silver to protect all of Israel. He poured the very thing that was used to be used against them, that could have blocked them out of the book of life, and turned it in for good. What God meant, what was meant for evil, God turned about for good. I don't.
He does that kind of stuff.
Colloidal gold. It's all embedded here. We discover things in our generation that's been embedded in the scriptures all this time. I don't know if anybody had ever thought about that, but I was just thinking, what an amazing thing.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. And I'm going to say I want to tell you something. This is my thought. The story of the adulterous bride who is caught in the act, and she and her husband come, or the jealous husband that brings his wife, and they take the dust from the tabernacle and they put it with the water and the scrapings off of the Torah scroll, and puts it, makes a mixture, and she drinks it. And if nothing happens, she's innocent. And if something does happen, she's not innocent. But I think that story goes very well. And I think that story is like, well, I think there's truth in that. But on the other side is true too. What if the adulterous people, the ones that were committing that act, were in such rebellions like, we're not listening to you, Moses, any longer. And look what you just did to our golden calf.
To our God.
And therefore, they ignored the words of life. They identified themselves. And the Levites, not in anger, but in acts of mercy, put them out of their misery. Just a thought. Just a thought. But
it does bring up one other question. You can see how we could do that with our modern equipment to powderize that gold. But how did they, coming over in the wilderness there, how were they able to powderize that golden calf? What equipment did they have that would
Like a mortar and pestle.
make baby powder out of that gold?
Like a mortar and pestle.
It's soft.
Look what they did with the pyramids. Nobody can figure that out. There's things
Yeah.
known back then.
so gold is soft, and mortar and pestle, and to grind it down, I would think it would take some time to do, but to be able to break it down into chunks and then take those chunks and begin
Or
to.
even like the troughs that they needed running.
Gold.
Uh-huh.
It's got to be finer than baby powder.
You
Not
can
just
grind it. You need to grind it because it's
like
Finer than it does.
Yeah.
That's good.
So just grinding it down. However it happened, they did it. And, might have gotten some help, right? And the other thing is, it was, when someone does it, in other words, when the president does something, did the president do it? Or did he authorize all of his minions to do it? And then he's getting the credit for it, right? So they could have joined together to get it all the way pulverized and to bring this out to show this mercy.
Now, if you've ever ground down copper, or I've never had done gold or anything like that, when it gets on your wheel, it sticks, glues to it like a crayon, a melted crayon.
Gold's about like lead.
And
So it's soft enough to go.
yeah, and if you've ever done lead, you know that you can only do it for about that long, and then it stops doing it. It's just caked on there, and it becomes smooth.
Right. Aluminum's kind of the same way, where it'll light up the converter or whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So interesting. It's very interesting, some of the aspects of it. but not to get lost in the weeds there, I want to look at it as, wow, what about this thing? Even the point of Moses, when he went and it says, oh, I can't find it right now. But he went up there a second time to intercede for the people because God said, I'm going to blot these people out from the book of life. Moses interceded and he said, oh, that my name would be blotted out. Well, do you know that the Torah portion where, hey, Jesse. So, you know, the Torah portion where he goes up there to intercede for the people, he said that my name would be blotted out of the word, that's the Torah portion of that Moses is not mentioned in. Out of all the Torah portions that involve Moses, that's the only Torah portion that his name is not mentioned. His name was literally blotted out of that Torah portion. That in those chapters of that Torah portion, when over in Exodus, in Exodus, his name is not mentioned. So God said, okay, I'm not going to blot you out of the word, but I'll take you out of this Torah portion, your name out of the Torah portion. Okay. So the Rosh, what flows from the head to the end. I have kind of the wrong side downhill approach here on my board. We flipped it this way. Think about what flows down, and then think about this in the covenant, in the Ark of the Covenant. What is the Ark of the Covenant covered in?
What's it covered in? Gold.
In gold. So what's it tell you about what's inside?
The rod. There's three things.
It's the jar of manna. It's the Aaron's rod that budded, and the sapphire stones.
Ooh, I
And-
forgot that.
And that came out of the presence of God. If you wonder why
Static charge.
why there is such a charge coming out of there, why the priest would go in there and he had to have the linen turban on and all of the dress completely in
Oh,
linen,
that's why
and he
they got
couldn't be
undergarments.
sweating. He could
Really?
not sweat, even his undergarments. And so when he went in there, he would be completely grounded because that radiation, what's the half-life of radiation? Depends on what it is, but it could be 30 years, or it can be thousands of years, depending on the type of radiation, type of.
Now you can go back and you can kind of figure out, like when he was glowing, what the whole time was, and figure out roughly what it would be from that.
That's a really good point, William. That's a really good point. So, because remember, he had to put the veil over his face because he was glowing. At a certain point in time, he didn't wear that veil any longer. So the radiation, but just think about it. How did his body survive that much radiation? Other than Moses had to be flawless, which speaks to maturity, but it also speaks to something that
When he was born, was he the one that was glowing or whatever, when he was born?
I don't.
Is that considered his appearance?
I can't tell you that.
Noah.
Okay.
That was Noah that was concerned about appearance. Because he was not the same color as the rest of the family.
His appearance. So Noah's appearance. Hi, Ella. It's good to see you too. Oh, you're gonna come give me a hug? Oh, that's
I'm a birthday girl.
You're a birthday girl. Well, happy birthday.
Yeah, I'm growing so much.
You are growing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, these clothes used to fit yesterday.
Yes, yesterday.
These fit yesterday.
So what do they feed you over there in Oklahoma?
What?
What do they feed you in Oklahoma?
Mostly something with spice, but I do not like it.
Oh, mostly something with spice. Okay.
You know the word because?
No spice.
Okay, Terry.
I put, those who were in rebellion may have refused to drink the waters and would have gotten radiation poisoning, and the Levites killed them out of mercy. because of the radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
How can you hear you, Terry? Because what?
Because of the radiation poisoning.
Yeah, there's symptoms that have identified it as the ones that we're not doing what we're supposed to.
Yeah. Yep. Right. Their symptoms identified them as the ones that were in rebellion. Yeah. So ultimately, yes, the worship of the golden calf was the rebellion, but the fruit continued, and it identified them because Moses coming down, carrying that radiation into their presence was overwhelming.
And it took them a little bit to get that gold ground up fine enough to put in the water. And that would allow the symptoms of the radiation poisoning to manifest. Because, Joy, you being a nurse, you know symptoms like that take a time to manifest. Like being pregnant, it takes a time for anyone other than the wife to even know that she's pregnant.
So does anybody know, William, maybe you know this, and with radiation poisoning, so let's say there's a radiation leak as somebody that works at a nuclear power plant or a nuclear sub or a facility like that, how quickly does radiation poisoning manifest? It depends on the dosage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, so the three things you have working for you, you've got time, your exposure time to it, how far away you are from it, and any kind of shield you have between it.
Okay. So those that might not have heard it is the time of exposure, the amount of exposure, and if you have any shields between you and the source.
It also depends on the type. If you got X-ray, you got gamma, alpha and beta.
Yeah. So so here's an interesting thing that,
Probably ionizing from
Probably would be gamma.
yeah. So the shots that many people took, that one of the ingredients in the shots that they found is cesium. Is it cesium 36? It's something that has a number on it. 37, cesium 37. So isn't it interesting that they put radiation? Isn't if you think about how it's connected? Now, it seems to me that the mark of the beast, one, it's threefold, but if those shots are somehow related, it's not fully taking on the mark, but it has some of the aspects that take it that direction. And that radiation is also maybe somehow connected to the people that are stung and they suffer for 5 months that the book of Revelation talks to us about. It is a type of radiation poison. They cry out for mercy, but they find none, but they don't die.
Wow.
This says symptoms of radiation poisoning: anorexia, nausea, vomiting. Onset occurs anywhere from an hour to 2 days after exposure.
Yeah. So Moses immediately had to get to work.
Yeah.
That's all I could say. Joy.
I'm not sure that what this has to do with it, but it has occurred to me that the sun, hasn't it radiation increased from it just because of the cycle that it's going through or whatever? Isn't the radiation more so?
Yes.
And so I've just been wondering, I'm curious if that has to do with anything. I don't know.
Well, we're getting sunburst and everything else.
Well, I will tell you this. The sun is doing all these different things, and so it's affecting the electromagnetic sphere around the earth, and that is degrading. The more we keep getting hit, the more it's been degrading. And so therefore radiation from the sun, more of it comes in and is getting into the earth, and it's hitting land. And some have even speculated that because of the thinning of that electromagnetic sphere around the earth, that's one of the reasons that they keep doing these engineering the geoengineering to kind of help stop blocking, to block it a little bit, to prevent, even though it has its own side effects. And that's why they started all these fires in Canada. And there's a whole bunch of fires, by the way, going on in Siberia, that is to create some type of additional covering and to kind of block some of that radiation. And so some type of radiation block, but on the other side, one of the things that's coming through more than ever, and we've talked about it here especially a few years back, is ultraviolet A and B is normal, but ultraviolet C typically gets reflected, but it's not getting reflected as much, and ultraviolet C is hitting the ground. And that is what's really devastating, the radiation that you feel, that tingling on your skin. If you go to the North or the South poles, where there's specifically the South Pole, where there's a hole where they say, what is it? What's the hole? Ozone layer. Yeah, and there's a hole there. Yet the burns there are a high degree of gamma radiation. Is it ultraviolet radiation that will causes cancer and burns, and it'll kill you if you're exposed to it. So you have to stay. Of course, it's cold. You want to be covered anyway, but you don't want that skin exposed. That tingling becomes a very, very quick burn.
Well, they say in New Zealand, in a half hour you can get severely sunburned.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting. So, okay.
Yeah, things are not normal.
So here's what a Jewish commentator said concerning heels. He says, it's James Stone Goodman. He points to the usage of Ekev in Psalms 89:51. So let's go to Psalms 89:51 real quick. 89:51. Is someone there that can read that?
With which your enemies have reproached, O Yah, with which they have reproached the footsteps of your anointed.
Okay, so what he says, that the usage of Ekev in Psalms 89:51, so it's talking about the footsteps of thine anointed. It speaks of on the heels of the Messiah, as referring to the last generation before the Messiah. The heel generation contains the weight of every generation prior to it. Every word said, every mitzvah, that is every commandment performed, contributes in some way to the coming of the Messiah. That generation is therefore pointed to in Deuteronomy 7:12 as the generation who will shema to the instructions of Yahweh. Now, I think that's a very interesting comment. So if we go back to Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 11, or verse 12, go to Deuteronomy 7, verse 12, then it shall come about, because you listen to these judgments and keep and do them, that Yahweh your Elohim will keep with you his covenant and his loving kindness, which he swore to your forefathers. So I think that's really interesting, that the heel generation contains the weight of every generation prior to it. Now you think about how this generation carries the dregs, giving the trampling out of the wine at the very end, the trampling out. And what do you get? It brings you the juice, but there's the dregs that are on the bottom. And you think about, what if we're that generation that's carrying the weight of all of the generations before us? The whole reason why Messiah has to come, because this weight, it cannot even bear up. This generation cannot bear up the weight of all these other generations. Why does it So doesn't it make sense that we are really have come to this point that generation, it's where he also says the generation is therefore appointed to in VARIM 7:12 as the generation who will shema to the instructions, because this generation will either be crushed by the weight of it all, or they'll hear and come out from her.
Come on.
And be protected. In other words, they're going to drink the colloidal gold. They're going to drink the juice. They're going to have the right stuff in her, and to be able to come out and be separated, to be that bride, right? To be that perfect bride, the mature bride. And so what was once the heel, maybe Jacob was commentators and the rabbis and all the teachers degraded his name, made him like he's this awful guy. Well, rises as the head, becomes Israel, and so we're the ones that we feel like are the outcasts of society.
Sometimes.
It was a lot easier to be Esau. It's a lot easier to go out and get and kill to eat as opposed to raise your food from the ground.
He didn't say it'd be easy.
And especially in the day when you could do that, you really can't do that nowadays. But to be able to rise up as the generation who ushers in the Messiah.
And Yaakov turned that around.
He did.
He teshuved that.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all I have to say about this one today.
What scripture did you say in Psalm 81? What verse?
Psalm 89.
Oh, 89.
Yeah. 89:51.
Thank you.
All right. So let's close in prayer. Father, we just thank you for your word, this Torah portion.
Yes, Lord.
So much is involved in it. We just hit an aspect, a theme that goes in this word, and it goes through the scriptures, and we see these wonderful things and these hidden treasures.
Yes.
We ask, Father, that let it be meat unto us, a nourishing meal that causes us to be strengthened, that we can be mature, that we can grow into that place that you want us to be, that bride that's fit for a bridegroom. And so, Father, we just ask that you continue to give us eyes to see and ears to hear your presence upon this assembly as we gather for the encounter service and praise and worship in the word that you want to speak to us about. Father, we just thank you for the gathering, and just fill us, anoint us,
Yes.
cover us with your spirit.
Come with us.
And we bless you and honor you in the name of
Yes,
Yeshua.
God.
Amen.
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 Shabbat shalom.